Welcome to the Voice of Liberty podcast. My name is Henry Conley. I am continuing the POTUS series and very happy to have Vermin Supreme with me here tonight. Vermin, how are you doing?
I am doing very well, Henry. Thank you for having me this evening. It's a pleasure to be here on the Voice of Liberty radio podcast, broadcast communication strategy that you have here. And I hope that it will be educational, enlightening, and perhaps even entertaining.
I hope so also. Very excited to have you on. For everyone that doesn't know who Vermin Supreme is, he's an awesome character, awesome guy. Just to preface, as I always do, the questions that will be asked of Vermin are the same questions that have been asked of all previous candidates and will be asked of all forthcoming POTUS candidates.
And there sure are a lot of them, aren't there?
There's just a few. So, diving right into the first thing, libertarians, we love to harp on this beautiful thing called taxes. And, of course, we have all different viewpoints on taxes. So, the first thing I like to ask the candidates on tax stances is a very simple question is, what is your stance on taxes?
Well, once again, as a candidate for the Libertarian Party nomination, I have taken a pledge or have made a pledge or made just it. I want to make it clear that I will be standing on the Libertarian Party platform. And I believe that the Libertarian Party platform itself is very clear on this particular issue. All government finance spending, 2.4 in the Libertarian Party platform. If you're not familiar with the Libertarian Party platform, I certainly encourage you to go to the Libertarian Party webpage and read their platform because they really have the answers to these questions. I suppose it must be a challenge to you asking the same questions and having every candidate essentially answering the exact same way.
With little different nuances here and there.
Financial spending. All persons are entitled to keep the fruits of their labor. We call for the repeal of the income tax, the abolishment of the Internal Revenue Service, and all federal programs and services not required under the U.S. Constitution. We oppose any legal requirements forcing employers to serve as tax collectors. We support any initiative to reduce or abolish any tax and oppose any increase on any tax for any reason to the extent possible. We advocate that all public services be funded in a voluntary manner. And once again, you know, that says it all pretty much right there. I mean, there is another reference or two to it that would certainly be included in it, but essentially, I think that's the main one that states the Libertarian Party platform's stance on taxes, and as such, it is certainly mine because I am offering to shill for the Libertarian Party. I am willing to front for the Libertarian Party, and I want to assure everybody, but that is what I will be doing. With, of course, a certain shout out to taxation is theft, which is, of course, the short answer that the taxation is theft crowd would love to hear. Naturally, we live in a society, and there is that. I do believe that indeed the platform is accurate, and we do need to transition off from tax-funded assistance and taxpayer services to public services and people getting together and people caring for one another and creating these structures and safety nets that have become a very big bureaucracy that is certainly mismanaged and not as effective as it could be. So that's it. And in addition, of course, I do propose a lottery tickets for your tax money system because people seem to love the lottery, and it seems to be a really reasonable, painless tax that people will be happily throwing their money away. So I assume that we'll replace the IRS with some sort of we'll just turn the U.S. government into more of a gambling house, a casino, if you will, and so that all the citizens will simply sit around the internet all day playing Keno and throwing their money away to the government in that fashion. I believe it's a much more fair and equitable. And of course, I think to really achieve a full-on parity and economic justice, we must tax the 1% at 1%, and we must tax the 99% at 99%. It's only fair, and it's the only way that we'll get anywhere in this country. Now, of course, you will note that my candidacy is sort of predicated on presenting the actual Libertarian Party platform. but it's also the humor and the jokes and the satire that I'm fairly well known for. And I believe that's a good combination, a type of way to get that information out to the people. And if you watch any of my recent debates, I've tried that to be very similar in that, open with a joke, a quip, and then roll right into the statement that essentially reflects the Libertarian Party platform. That is my winning strategy. That is what I'm helping bring to the table here. Once again, I think it needs to be understood that I, as a candidate, am I running for the LP nomination? Am I even seeking it? That I'm not even clear on myself. But what I know I am doing is I am putting an offer on the table. I am offering my services. I am offering my character and universe of whimsy, if you will. I am bringing forth the possibility that we could work it into an amazing internet viral reality situation. And these are things that I'm bringing to the table. But let's go on. Let's continue. I have plenty more in the pitch, and I will be hammering these things as we go along, because of course I'm trying to sell my candidacy, and I'm trying to sell my offer, and so people really need to understand what it is that I'm offering. I'm not just some guy running for your nomination with a whole bunch of crazy ideas. It is legit. So please continue. That was a little aside, but hey.
No, that's fine. So what I wanted to roll into, and I've said this in a couple of the previous interviews, and I will continue to say it. For those that don't understand, as President of the United States, you don't have a ton of power to affect taxes. But what you can do is you can pressure Congress into affecting taxes. So as president, what would you do to help put pressure on Congress in order for them to actually finally take action on taxes?
Well, as president, I would have the ability to walk the halls of Congress and apply literal pressure. I mean, literal pressure. I could take their heads in my hands and squeeze them. So I would have to say, naturally, this is a purely hypothetical question. It involves pure speculation. And I'm not above. I like pretend. Don't you get me wrong. I think that is one of the valuable services that I provide as a individual, as a persona, as a character, if you will, is that I give grown-ups the ability to pretend with my pretend platforms of zombies and mandatory secret dental police and ponies and all of these things. I think that is one of the attractive parts that has helped my campaign strike a chord, coming up with these very simple yet elegant elements. I mean, once again, what could be more simple than wearing a boot on my head? I mean, it's simple, and yet it is elegant, and the effect that it has had has allowed me to this communication strategy where I've been able to reach out to millions and millions of people around the globe, in fact. And this is one of the things that I bring to the table. Is this ability? I mean, the toothbrushing, the ponies. I mean, people brush their teeth every day. They hold the toothbrush in their hand. It's a simple object. Back in the early 90s, I did traveling 20 countries through Europe, and in each country, I had the simple phrase translated: "Brush your teeth. It's the law. I am with the secret dental police," and everybody got it. I had the giant toothbrush, and I would say this in their language, and I think just the linkage of these simple ideas really wake up people. It's so simple. It essentially came to me during the mandatory seatbelt laws as they were being phased in, and this was in the late 80s, 70s, and I was like, well, okay, it's a good law, sure. I mean, well, the law makes sense. I mean, of course, the state has a vested interest in keeping their costs down on their citizens' head injuries or whatever. But, does it need to be a law? Should it be a law? And I concluded that it probably should not be a law. It's just common sense. And I said to myself, what would be the next stupidest thing that they could legislate? and the toothbrushing law came into being. I mean, and you know, that is the origin story of that particular little bit of satire that has served me so well. And of course, the expansion and expounding of the secret dental police and dental re-education centers, and you know, I've been sort of using that imagery as a warning to people of this fascist clampdown of the government was involved in for the past 30 years, and sort of to see it come to pass. Well, that's a little discouraging, quite frankly. I mean, I wrote the Mandatory Toothbrushing Act long before the Patriot Act was ever a thing. And I believe that they just took the damn mandatory toothbrushing law, stripped it out, and stripped out the toothbrushing references, and it became the Patriot Act.
Patriot Act.
Yeah, it's fact.
You heard it here. Vermin Supreme laid the groundworks.
Joe Biden picked up the ball, of course.
Well, of course, you know, which I think we're still waiting on an answer of is his running mate going to be okay, Boomer? Have you got an answer?
Oh yes, it's New Hampshire primary time, kids, and that can only mean that every last darn candidate in the field will be making it up to New Hampshire, and they do, and we have been already having a whole lot of fun. Mike Pence was up. Well, I guess the big burst of activity was like the first 2 weeks in November, and that was the registration period when people go to register, and that is when I warmed up with Mike Pence, and I was my bullhorn patter was something along the lines of, President Pence is the worst president since Obama, and of course telling the supporters that Mike Pence is going to be president before you know it. And so I was having a lot of fun with that. And then, yes, Joe Biden came up, and we harangued the fuck out of his crowd. I mean, it was so hard. I mean, he had like hundreds of supporters lining the halls of the State House. And he had these hype guys working bullhorns, trying to get the crowd chanting. And so I said, okay, I got a bullhorn too. And they were like, when I say president, you say Biden, President Biden. And then I would throw in impeach, President Biden, impeach, bring back. And then they started yelling out this thing, fired up. And then I start yelling out, if you have weed, fire it up. And so I was, you know, it would be like, impeach president. And then I would say, impeach. And then somebody would say, Trump. And I'd look at him and say, what are you, some sort of Trump supporter? And during this time, my compatriot, Rod Weber, was trying to file in the Secretary of State's office as Epstein didn't kill himself. And so we met up there, and he came out. And Secretary of State Bill Gardner was like really upset that we were totally messing with his movie so hard. And so he called in like half a dozen different Capitol State Police, and they came up and we got into it. And of course, we were fully within our right to be here. And once we explained the situation to the officers, they asked the Secretary of State, well, is there any real reason that he can't be here? And he could not come up with one. And so essentially we had carte blanche, and we used that to our advantage. Let me tell you that. I mean, working and wrangling with cops for so many years has certainly given us a full understanding of our rights in dealing with authority. First and foremost, you must understand that I am an anti-authoritarian. I am an anarchist and have been for 30 years at least. And, you know, and then Elizabeth Warren came up, and that was some crazy stuff. And I was the only person. I was first in line, and Elizabeth Warren denied me a selfie. She had a state police officer come out to me and tell me, oh, Senator Warren will not have a selfie taken with you.
Holy cow.
And so then we chased her ass out, and her staff, of course, thought that they were cops or thought they were authority, and tried to impose their imaginary authority upon us, which we completely shut down and ignored. And, you know, demanded Elizabeth Warren's position on the interstate roller coaster versus weather domes. And she just blew it off. So that was mildly, the only satisfying thing was that, you know, just like these kids who think they're security. I mean, what the heck? Uh, and let's see, who else did we got? Oh, and Andrew Yang. I caught up with Andrew Yang, and I actually I got $151 bills and autographed them all. And I went to his event and was handing them out. I was paying out about the pony dividend. And then as Andrew Yang was leaving the building, I just showered him with money. I made it rain. I made it rain on Andrew Yang. And that was a beautiful thing. And I guess in the last day of filing, we had an armed pony parade.
That's awesome.
That had been a vision of mine for a couple of years now. I said, "Oh yeah, when I go up to New Hampshire in 2016, we are going to have ponies, and they are going to have guns." And we had a 2-mile parade from Area 23, a local libertarian pub up in Concord, New Hampshire, to the State House. And it was wildly successful. And then after the pony parade, we went up to Bill Gardner's office, and because I'm seeking the Libertarian Party nomination, I'm not. They don't like fusion candidates, correct? Gotcha. I mean, a lot of the state parties and a lot of the state, you won't get on the ballot if you're perceived to be a fusion candidate. In the past, of course, in New Hampshire, I've run as a Republican, I've run as a Democrat, just depending on the field and how I'm feeling. And that's, of course, where I've gotten a lot of my publicity. I mean, in the past, I've come in 3rd on the Democratic ticket. I came on 4th in the Democratic ticket. So I've done quite well up there. But I was willing to, give up that particular part of the exposure during the New Hampshire primary because I am serious about seeking the nomination. And I didn't want to run into any ballots that have any sore loser laws because I'm trying to go for 5%, and I didn't want to jeopardize losing a state that might make that difference. So we went up to Bill Gardner's office, and I went in there with the money, and knowing full well, of course, that the Libertarian Party primary was not being sponsored by the state because the state of New Hampshire does not recognize the Libertarian Party currently. And so we went in there with a whole bunch of our crew and made a very strong statement. It's like I made them get Bill Gardner. He was in a meeting. They gave me the form. I didn't even fill out the form. But I said, Bill Gardner, I am here today to register for the Libertarian Party primary, knowing full well that, he wasn't in charge of it at all. And so he had to explain that to me. But then we essentially used that as an opportunity to call him on the fact of, what is it with this ballot access, with this gatekeeping. And it was a good stunt, I would say, because that's what it was. And I think it was successful, very much so. We had members of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, Richard Manzo, who, just called Bill Gardner out really hard. Rod Weber came up to video documenting, and of course, Bill hates him so hard for screwing with them so hard up there. And so, yeah, it was a good time. And of course, I don't know if you heard about, I'm sure you did, Rod Weber's latest crazy exploit.
I don't think I actually have.
Oh, okay. He was down at the Art Basel event down in Miami, Florida. He was selling prints of his and prints of mine. And then they had that banana taped to the wall. Do you remember that? And that went for $120,000 or some shit. And then the other day, some artist came up and ate that banana. And so Rod was inspired, and he went in there with lipstick and scrawled the word.
Oh, I saw this on Facebook today. Yep. Okay. I know what you're talking about.
That's my guy, Rod Weber.
He's also
the producer and director of This Is Vermin Supreme, which is the documentary that we will be screening in Nashville this Friday the 13th. There, yes. Check out the event page on.
So that Facebook. Must be the event that your team was talking about getting this out in time for. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. It's we'll put up the links, I assume, or whatever, right on the page here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be a great time, and we're going to have a super duper time. If you're in the Southeast region, come to Nashville this Friday the 13th, and we will screen the movie. You'll meet me. I think Rod Weber will be here talking about his banana incident, and Yeah, it's going to be really good.
That's amazing.
Okay, next question. Okay, I think I've digressed from your question.
I'll tell you, this is going to be one of the most action-packed interviews I've had, so I can deal with it. So I want to move into foreign policy stances because that's something that I like to harp on. Most libertarians like to harp on this. And the first thing I want to talk about within foreign policy stances is I want to talk about your views on withdrawing troops from the Middle East. Those wars, I've argued myself that they are pointless wars for oil and drugs. But there are people out there that say, well, you can't remove troops super fast because you'll create a void where ISIS and Hezbollah can move in. Or there's people that say rapidly.
That would never happen. How could that ever happen in the real world?
So what's your view on that? Do we immediately pull our troops out, or do you have a different view on what should happen with the Middle East?
Well, once again, I hate to be a stickler for this. I hate to say that this is what I do, but it is what I do. I'm going to read to you from the Libertarian Party platform. I hope you don't perceive it as a cop-out. I mean, because
Nope.
I maintain that we all have opinions, okay? We all have opinions. And I've always maintained that my opinions are about as meaningless or as meaningful as the next person's. They have no real bearing on reality, and the fact that people disagree so hard and get so emotionally invested and vehement about their opinions that they will hate another person simply because they have other opinions. I've always found disturbing. And I've always maintained, I think about certain things, and my worldview is informed by certain media I intake, and my moral compass and all that, and I believe everybody's is. So when it comes to these type of questions, we all have opinions on these things, and of course, especially in this context, where ultimately my opinion on this, what I'm going to do as president, is so imaginary, pretend, and speculative. That I can only rely on reading directly from the third section of the Libertarian Party platform on national defense. And I'd like to point out, I had a recent appearance on WTF Nation, which is a military network with over 1 million subscribers. And they started hitting me with this idea that the libertarians don't like the military or veterans. And and I think a lot of has to do with Arvin's impolitic comments, perhaps. But I felt I did as much damage control as I could, and part of that damage control involved reading directly from this platform so that they would have an understanding of what the Libertarian Party really stood for. And of course, in terms of national defense, we support the maintenance of a sufficient military to defend the United States against aggression. The United States should both avoid entangling alliances and abandon its attempts to act as policemen for the world. We oppose any form of compulsory national service. Now, that's straight up. That's something I've agreed with and felt my entire life. A lot of people, Vermin, how can you be a libertarian? Why did you join the Libertarian Party? These are the reasons. The simple statements in the platform itself has allowed it just dovetails with my understanding. Like I said, I'm an anarchist from the left. However, I've been able to understand where we mesh and where we can agree, and I wanted to help present these things. The Libertarian Party, as near as I can see, is the only party that anarchists can really be comfortable in, and I think that's an important thing. International affairs, American number 3.3. American foreign policy should seek an America at peace with the world. Our foreign policy should emphasize defense against attack from abroad and enhance the likelihood of peace by avoiding foreign entanglements. We should end the current U.S. government policy of foreign intervention, including military and economic aid. We recognize the right of all people to resist tyranny and defend themselves and their rights. We condemn the use of force, and especially the use of terrorism, against the innocent, regardless of whether such acts are committed by government or by political or revolutionary groups. 3.4, free trade and migration. We support the removal of government impediments to free trade. Political freedom and escape from tyranny demand that individuals not be unreasonably constrained by government in the crossing of political boundaries. Economic freedom demands the unrestricted movement of human as well as financial capital across national borders. These are things that I have believed my life, and they are enshrined in the Libertarian Party platform. And that is why I want to help promote this platform, and that is why I am making this offer of my candidacy, of the possibilities that my candidacy offers the Libertarian Party. Once again, it is a radical direction to take a party in. I mean, it is bold. Some say visionary. But, you know, I'm not claiming it's any of these things, but it is a strategy. It is a notion. Once again, I point to the bubble that I surround myself with at this point. And quite frankly, I have a fairly sizable campaign staff of active libertarians. I mean, people who have worked on campaigns, who know the party, who are dedicated to the party. And they have seen the possibilities of a Vermin Supreme national campaign as the Libertarian Party nominee. I mean, there are some very good arguments as to why I am a very, very good candidate that could conceivably get 5%. Yeah. I mean, but you know, and there are concerns, and there are reservations, and there is flat out opposition and opinions to the contrary. Correct. And I respect these opinions to the contrary and concerns, and I'm doing my best to address them. You know, one of the biggest ones that I get is, you know, can a serious party put up a person perceived to be or labeled a joke candidate? And I believe that, yes, I believe it is doable. I believe it is a matter of framing. You know, I believe it would just take the commitment of the party itself to put out the statement and put it out there. Yes, we are the Libertarian Party. We are a party of ideals and visions, and we are working towards a much better future. However, and it's a simple pivot. The electoral system that produces our presidents has become a joke. And with love and with spite, here's Vermin Supreme. And they kicked me out on the stage. And of course, it will be important to point out repeatedly. I mean, there will be a lot of explaining, but the explanation must be, yes, we are the Libertarian Party, and we are in on the joke.
I would argue that, you know, another thing when people ask that question is, and of course, this is sidetracking, but it has to be said, the Democrats and the Republicans managed to put up a joke candidate every 4 years. They've been great, apparently.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got the Trump in there, but I also think it's very instructive to look at the Ukraine, which is very much in the news, and the election of Zelensky. Yep. I mean, the man was a comedian. Granted, he was a corporate television type of comedian, but nonetheless, he came from you know, more or less nowhere, sort of some weird pop culture thing, and now he's the actual president of a country. The mayor of Reykjavik was another humor candidate. Yep. So, you know, I think that the LP can certainly put up a candidate and have a whole lot of fun with it. I mean, essentially, the choice is going to be given. I mean, there will be 2 time streams that the LP will have to choose from. It really depends. How much fun do you want to have fucking with the duopoly? You know?
I can't lie, and I would be amazingly entertained to see you debating Donald Trump and whoever the Democrats put up, you know, if you manage to get on the stage, because, you know, the whole 3 podiums is a mess thing. But
it could very well happen. I mean, you know, if they stand by their, you know, the speculative 15% in the polls. I mean, I would imagine that if I was the nominee, if I was a legitimate candidate, if it was going to be on all 50 states, then more than likely that we could viralize the kids to poll it at 15%. I mean, D's nuts polled at 19%. And I think it's just a matter of making it past the editors. And I guess it comes down to, raising the money to, run the polls, because that's what you seem to have to do in these situations at times. But 15%, if I was included now, yeah, quite frankly, I mean, Trump, Biden, or even anybody else, Vermin supreme. I mean, and if that is the choices that people are giving, I think it would poll that. It might not vote that in the general election. But, I throw out the things I like to throw out is, there are 3.9 million high school students that graduate in any given year. Now, give me 2 of those years. Give me this year and give me next year's. That's almost 8 million kids. Add to that the 17 plus million kids that are in college in any given year. That's a pool of 25 million potential voters. If you give me one out of 4 of those kids, that will equal your 6.5 million voters. That equals 5%.
Gotcha.
And once again, that does not include huge pools of the disaffected, the disillusioned, the disgusted, and my audience, which is so very wide and maybe shallow, but it is very wide. And it includes so many subcultures. There are so many subcultures out there, and essentially they all fall under nerd culture. And they're geeks. I mean, is it Dungeons and Dragons or cosplay or kinky sex play or bronies or furries or rules of Robert order nerds, political nerds, and if not, what is the Libertarian political party? I mean, or any political party? People who are active in the party, they are political nerds.
Yes.
They are geeks of their own, and that it's a beautiful thing. But they are my audience, and these are people that will seriously consider voting for me. What I've started to do, just as a little mind game for myself, anytime I'm in a group of 20 people, I try and find the one person that might vote for me. That's 5%, 1 out of 20 people.
Yep.
So I would like you to do that. Spend a day. You're on the bus. You start looking around. And it's like, okay, we got 60 people on the bus. Which 3 people here would vote for Vermin Supreme? It's been working. Of course, it's totally unscientific, but it is what it is.
It's an experiment. I mean, that would make it scientific.
It's a little bit of a thought experiment, yeah.
So moving right along.
Sure. Yes. Oh, I think we digressed a little bit there. Right,
so within foreign policy, this is one of the ones I've been touching on with everyone, of course. We have all these foreign military bases, and I would argue that they are making more enemies than they are friends. They are putting us in more danger than they are making us safe. Now, some of those bases are through treaty, and we could touch on that if you want. But a lot of these bases are not through treaty, and they are existing solely because we said, hey, guess what? We're putting a base here. As President Vermin Supreme, what would you do about those bases?
Well, we could nuke them, or we could turn them into big old shopping malls, or big amusement parks, because I believe that we owe it to any country that we've had any sort of footprint in to give them back a little bit of amusement for all their troubles. So, yeah, some sort of big giant gambling, prostitution, amusement park with roller coasters and rides and cartoon characters and costumes and parades and fireworks and sure, we'd have to get rid of all the toxic crap that the military left there and all that good stuff. But yeah, sure. I mean, privatize them. I mean, I don't know. We'll sell them. They weren't ours, but we'll sell them.
Sell them back to the country.
Exactly. Maybe we can leverage it. Maybe we can get them to pay us to go away.
There we go. We could eliminate the national debt.
And of course, also in foreign policy, my war on Narnia certainly continues. Let me assure you that we have secured the wardrobe. We are sending in pony drones as we speak. We will not stop until we have reached Middle Earth and the last orc is dead. Follow me to victory, people. to victory.
So
Thank you.
that was awesome.
Another one of the things that I bring to the table: complete and total wackiness. You think Gary Johnson pretending to have a heart attack was funny? Ha 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 ha! You ain't seen nothing yet.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I am so glad you brought that up, because that was one of the things that really awoken me to how awesome this party is, was that. But, you know, I in prepping for this interview, I've watched more of your videos than I think is healthy in a week.
Good for you. Good for you.
And, yeah, far better than Gary Johnson. So
yeah, people ask me, you know, what would my campaign look like? And it would look pretty much like any of my videos on the internet, except a lot of attention would be being paid. And yeah, I think I'd still be pretty wacky, out of control. But inevitably, you know, when I went viral in 2012, I was covered by literally every media outlet that existed at the time. And if I were to be the nominee, you can be damn sure that every media outlet in the world would want to know what the hell was going on and why the fuck did the LP put up Vermin Supreme. I mean, and that would be an opportunity, and it would be a hell of a kickoff for the campaign. You know, on any election year, sure, I draw a lot of press attention. The LP does okay. Whoever is running for the LP get, but fuse it all together, it just has the possibility to go really mega.
So moving right along.
Yes, I'm sorry, we digressed. We digressed again. I'm sorry.
Hey, we can keep digressing. Hey, that doesn't bother me.
All right.
Edward Snowden.
Yes.
We got to touch on him because, you know, the hot button topic for the past couple weeks has been whistleblowers and all this type of stuff. Everyone just keeps forgetting. Yeah, and I find it funny, you know, the Democrats, they're voicing all this support for protecting the whistleblower, but everyone seems to forget Edward Snowden, who did probably the most to awaken us as to what the government, the NSA, what they were doing through FISA courts and all this stuff. So, as president, would you support a full presidential pardon for Edward Snowden? And on top of that, would you support going any further with that?
Of course. Of course. I mean, once again, speaking purely theoretical, and but I think I can offer my opinion and believe that it accurately reflects the way it should be. Is that yes, of course, the man should be free, as should Reality Wiener, as should Chelsea Manning, as should any number of political prisoners, as should any number of nonviolent offenders in the system. Absolutely. Also in the platform. I mean, we want people out of the jails who are not a threat to society, and the United States has the largest mass incarceration prison rate in the world. There are more people in jail in the U.S. It is a huge, huge industry with huge, huge lobbyists. It is it's atrocious. It's an atrocity. It's a terrible, outrageous thing that is occurring as we speak in our country, and it's something that is simply not being addressed enough. It's behind the walls. People don't think about it, and they need to think about it.
Definitely would agree with that. And I'm glad you mentioned Reality Winner, because like her name does not come up enough. But you know, her and of course Chelsea Manning also have a debt to pay to them for what they did.
Yes. May I read the Crime and Justice plank of the Libertarian Party platform?
By all means.
Thank you. Crime and justice. Government force must be limited to the protection of the rights of individuals to life, liberty, and property, and governments must never be permitted to violate these rights. Laws should be limited in their application to violations of the rights of others through force or fraud, or to deliberate actions that place others involuntarily at significant risk of harm. Therefore, we favor the repeal of all laws creating crimes without victims, such as gambling, the use of drugs for medicinal or recreational purposes, and consensual transactions involving sexual services. We support restitution to the victim to the fullest degree possible at the expense of the criminal or the negligent wrongdoer. The constitutional rights of the criminally accused, including due process, a speedy trial, legal counsel, trial by jury, and the legal presumption of innocence until proven guilty, must be preserved. We assert the common law right of juries to judge not only the facts, but also the justice of the law. We oppose the prosecutorial practice of overcharging in criminal prosecutions so as to avoid jury trials by intimidating defendants into accepting plea bargains. I mean, there's a whole lot there, but it's all real.
It's all perfect.
Yes, I mean, that's what it says. That's what it stands for. That's what I support. That's what the Libertarian Party supports. And once again, that's what I want to present in my support of the party's platform, and let people know this.
I love it because that actually touched on two of the other questions in this, which is, of course, your stance on the drug war and your stance on sex workers' rights. Right in there, it says what we believe, and I would assume that's 100% rings true with you also.
Absolutely. And also, if I can go about the self-ownership, which also is the rights of the individual, very important thing to the libertarians, I believe. Self-ownership. Individuals own their bodies and have rights over them that other individuals, groups, and governments may not violate. Individuals have the freedom and responsibility to decide what they knowingly and voluntarily consume and what risks they accept to their own health, finances, safety, or life. Yes, with great freedom comes great responsibility. Once we disengage from the government, we have to be responsible to ourselves, to others. In my perfect world, I like to extend it. I like to say we should be responsible for others through generosity and generous acts to those who need such things. So yes, and of course, the party does have a very specific sex work plank, and it's
Yes.
the only party that does, and it's important to know, for people to know that. Some people in the party, they want to shy away for some of these controversial issues and positions, and I think it is what we are. It's what we stand for. It's in the platform. If it, what is a party, but what it's, its members, but what does it stand for? It's in the platform. I mean, sex work 2.10. The Libertarian Party supports the decriminalization of prostitution. We assert the right of consenting adults to provide sexual services to clients for compensation, and the right of clients to purchase sexual services from consenting sex workers. Now, once again, I know, we do not stand for human trafficking.
Correct.
No, we do not support pimps exploiting individuals. No, but we support the right of the individual to engage in these voluntary activities.
And I'm glad you said that we are the only party that has this specifically in our plank. But it's sad to say that eventually one of them is going to copy us, because they always seem to copy us once something we talk about gets popular. So eventually the Democrats more than likely will have that in their plank somehow, and we can just sit there and go with the classic, we supported it before it was cool.
Yeah. And well, as president, I will make a national holiday, support your local sex worker day.
There it is.
Yeah.
Mark that down. That'll be the new holiday.
Yes, absolutely. And,
So,
and of course, many people, well, what about the deregulation? What about the, how will they police each other? How will everybody make sure that everybody else is engaging in safe practices? And certainly that would be through voluntary councils, voluntary sex worker unions, voluntary sex worker rights advocates programs. Obviously, it would probably sex workers patronizer organizations that would demand that that these services be provided are clean and safe and happy and sound for all involved. And they ideally it's like that in all the various licensing type of services, the hair cutters or whatever those libertarians are complaining about these days. Shit, they're always complaining about something, aren't they? But their complaints are generally valid, and what they're talking about is generally real.
We complain about stuff that doesn't make sense.
Well, there is that too.
I mean, we literally complain about why you have to be licensed by the government to do X, Y, Z and exert your freedom. In the end, it makes sense.
So I think there's a lot of creative ways to achieve the things that we're trying to achieve. But I think we have to really, flesh them out and, put them into practice to show that there is, if we have a functioning licensing in-house type of or licensing or certificates or I don't know, once again, micro detailing, it will ultimately be figured out by the type of organization that organically forms to address such issues.
So
once again,
moving right along.
Okay, I mean I do want to point out that we are working towards a utopia.
Yes.
We are all utopias, which was another wonderful thing that allowed me to understand that, everybody in this party is working towards a vision of a better future, the way things can be better. And I suspect that's true of maybe all the parties or all the peoples who are working towards various things. So I think we have to respect that it is utopia. It's something we may never achieve, that it's likely we won't achieve. But taking these steps and promoting these steps and arguing for our liberties and our freedoms and practicing our liberties and freedoms is almost as important than what it will take to actually get there. I mean, we may not see Ponatopia in our lifetimes. I mean, it might be something our grandchildren are around to see.
Yes.
But that's the groundwork we're trying to lay down, I think.
And it's a great groundwork, I will say. I mean, it's one of the things that attracted me to this party is our vision for the way things should be. So I want to touch on Second Amendment stances. And the reason is because that's one of our biggest things. Myself, I am a 100% staunch how the Second Amendment was written is what it is. No laws, no regulation, no licensing. Let me have my guns.
Well, what is well regulated is in that Second Amendment. I will point out that there is that.
Yeah, you got me.
So of course, I mean, I that part I don't know. All I know for sure is that Vermin Supreme is gonna take away your guns and give you better ones.
Let's go.
And of course, Second Amendment, I believe it's right here in the Libertarian Party platform where we stand on that particular issue. I'm going to say it's 1.9, self-defense, the only legitimate use of force in defense of individual rights, life, liberty, and justly acquired property against aggression is self-defense. That's the only legitimate use of force. This right inheres to the individual who may agree to be aided by any other individual or group. We affirm the individual right recognized by the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms and oppose the prosecution of individuals for exercising their rights of self-defense. Private property owners should be free to establish their own conditions regarding the presence of personal defense weapons on their own property. We oppose all laws at any level of government restricting, registering, or monitoring the ownership, manufacture, or transfer of firearms or ammunition. So as such, I de facto defer and fully agree with the Libertarian Party platform.
There it is.
And once again, of course, people need to understand that, oh, yes, we are for guns and gun ownership, and we are against mass shootings.
Yes.
And we are against gun violence. And I believe that, responsible gun ownership will help lessen these things. I mean, there was a time in American history not too long ago where pretty much, everybody knew how to handle a firearm, where it was in the schools, where, ROTC and everybody was handling guns, and everybody respected them and understood the damage they could do, and all that. And of course, all the other frightening shit is, it's a horrible, frightening thing when that stuff goes down. But once again, you look at those statistics and rifle deaths are just not a lot of the, proportionally the deaths, and they're relatively rare, and the percentage of how many people are actually killed. I mean, tragedy is horrible, each and every one of them. To lessen this, and I don't want to start spinning on conspiracies of antidepressants causing people to go crazy and all that shit. So I'm just going to jump off that shit and say, guns are fun! Thank you. Thank you.
So, the next thing I want to move into is one of the questions I've really been looking forward to asking you, which is this one. Why are you qualified to be president?
Well, once again, I believe it's very clear that more than likely I am not qualified to be the president of America. However, let me assure you that my being not qualified to be president does not disqualify me from being a hell of a candidate. Okay? What my offer on the table, I'm offering to be a candidate for the Libertarian Party, to use my celebrity, my influence, the tricks in my magic boot hat to further the Libertarian Party message, to help grow the party. I mean, I was at a Comic Con, once again, one of my many fan bases, comic geeks, and we were at the Comic Con, and we were able to increase membership in the New Hampshire Libertarian Party by 20%. In a weekend, just by signing people up. During the Pony Parade, we live streamed it, and we were able to sign up several new members on the live stream, and they're live in person. So I believe that one of the opportunities, because if I happen to be the nominee, I mean, things are going to have to ramp up from 0 to 1 million in no time at all. I mean, we're going to have to be reaching out to every festival, every Comic Con, every type of activity that draws 100,000 people to it, say, for example, and start, working it really, really hard. And of course, part of that will involve, voter registration. It will involve membership drives. It will be getting, in fact, I will be on the ballot in several states in the Libertarian primary, including North Carolina, including California. We are collecting signatures right now to get on the Libertarian primary ballot in New York. And I believe that I will be able to use these opportunities to encourage a number of my supporters to at least switch their voter registration to Libertarian in order to have the opportunity to vote in those primaries. But I'll also be encouraging joining membership, of course. And so I believe that I will be able to grow it. I'm a little bit of a viral celebrity on TikTok right now.
I've heard.
Yes, I mean, 3.2 million hits on the hashtag Vermin Supreme. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Holy crap.
And, once again, of course, I don't think any of those kids, a lot of those kids probably ain't going to be voting this election because they're too young. But there's a fair amount in there. And, it's a marketing opportunity. Let me say that. My candidacy is a marketing opportunity. Now, once again, is it the branding the LP wants? I don't know, but I suspect just let me do it this once, and then everything will go back to normal like next time, okay? And the candidate will have a lot of whatever. They'll have referencing to do. They'll have a laugh about it. It'll be historical. It will go down in the annals of history. It will be, remember that time. Something to tell the grandkids.
Exactly. So the next topic I want to hit on is what are the three biggest issues facing America and why?
Very simple, very simple. Once again, lack of a comprehensive zombie preparedness plan for the zombie apocalypse. I believe that's a very important issue that needs to be dealt with. And I actually have it, I have heard and believe that it may be so that Mr. Trump's wall is not really meant to deter immigrants, because immigrants can seem to climb over it and cut through it pretty easily.
Yep.
But it is more of an anti-zombie defense system. Which, okay, if that's the way he thinks he's going to stop the zombie invasion. But I, for one, know that once they start all piling on top of one another and start crawling
They'll
over,
fall over.
Yeah, right up and over. It's actually all right here in my new book, iPony Blueprint for a New America. It's available on https /verminsupreme2020.com/shop. It's all right here, friends.
There it is.
And so that's very important. Of course, the lack of mandatory toothbrushing laws must be addressed naturally. So that's very important. And of course, the terrible lack of free ponies in America has become a real issue for me, if you have not noticed. And so I'd say those are the top three issues affecting this country right now, other than the surveillance state, the horrible police state, and which includes mass incarceration, and what else? General government overreach and restrictions of our freedoms. I would have to say those three right there pretty much cover the other three, I think.
I would agree. Which, by the way, I'm prepared to name my pony. I've already picked out a name, so I'm just waiting for him right now. So, or her. I think the name is able to work on either gender pony.
Uh-huh.
Plan on naming it Puckle. And that's
Puckle.
a Second Amendment reference.
That's a very nice name. I like that. I like that. Now, is it all right if I read a short portion from my book?
By all means, because I watched a video of you trolling Hillary supporters with excerpts of this book, so I'm welcoming it on my podcast.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Okay. Let me find it here. I'm gonna have to click it open here. Okay, there's that part. Okay. All right. The show. Yes. Yes, that was very exciting. I had to sue in federal court to actually get that pony there.
Yep.
I think it's worthy noting that I've been a lifelong First Amendment activist. I believe that the First Amendment is very, very important, and we must exercise it in any way, shape, or form that we can. And so I have been doing that for many years. Free assembly is an incredibly important thing to me. As you may know, I have sort of carved out a little portion of my reality in Riot World. I've made a point of helping facilitate free assemblies of protesters, generally from the left. And, I'll say that in the past, yes, I've been, I am an anti-authoritarian. And as such, I have found myself when I am at these giant protests against the various issues, that ultimately the anti-authoritarian bloc is generally black bloc, and it's generally flying the red and black colors. And so for many years, especially coming up, I mean, when I was younger, but to this day, when I see that type of, I won't call them a mob, but I'll call them an expressive crowd. And when I see them, I know that they are an anti-authoritarian bloc, and I know that they are more than likely going to confront the police and perhaps engage in some symbolic property destruction along the way. And I've, over the years, I started running with them to run interference with them to try and interface between them and the coppers at times. I've never seen a yellow and black bloc. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the libertarians are anti-authoritarian by their very nature. And so I would say, if I had ever experienced a yellow and black bloc out on the streets confronting authority, I'd be running. I probably would run with them too. I'm just going to that out. I don't know where I was going with that, and I hope I didn't dig myself in too far. Thank you very much.
You're all good. Don't worry.
Because I think that's where I got a lot of my cred over the years, is in those situations where I'm, dealing with all these cops and trying to, let them know that what I expect of them as professionals and as oppressors. And if you're going to oppress me, I expect professional behavior from you. And I do readings from the from riot control manuals, from the FBI, from the military, from police departments across the nation, and I edit them heavily, and I get them to say what I want, the points that I want to get across. But it's all legit, and I'm quoting these official documents to these riot police, and of course, when they're in formation, I bank on several things. I'm betting on the fact that they're not going to attack me unless their CO tells them to. So I use that to my advantage, and I treat them as a captive audience, and I use that as an opportunity to propagandize the fuck out of them. And so speaking to them from my heart, and reading them actual documents, and explaining my positions, and my relations with them, and what their relations is supposed to be with the citizens and the First Amendment, and all of these things. It reinforces, it bucks the crowd up. It reinforces the idea that we have a right to be there. Because when you get your riot cops and you get your protesters, there is a space in between there, and it is a vacuum, and anything could fill it. I mean, it could be a cop doing something stupid. It could be a protester doing something stupid. It could be an agitator jumping in there. Could be anything. But I have discovered that I can enter that area, that zone, that no person's land, and essentially own it and preempt any other thing. And by having this understanding of the dynamics of the tit for tat and back and forth, and by having this calm, reasonable voice over the bullhorn, have made not a career, but I've picked up some skills that have allowed me to really change the dynamics and really change reality and really lessen the possibility of violence. And I can't make a real claim about that other than anecdotal evidence and from what people respond back at me and feedback I get. So that, that's a very important thing that I've been doing over the years that not everybody knows. I mean, the comedic, imaginary candidacy. I mean, that's fun. I mean, but it's so easy, and it's sort of like pissing on fish in a barrel. I got lucky because I found this small niche, running for president. And because it's so small, not a lot of people work it hard. And because I had such a unique presentation, I was really able to parlay it into this much, much bigger thing through the magic of the boot. And, but like I say, for me, being in that really intense fucking world where, a riot could break out at any minute, or, the cops could charge and start swinging at any moment. Pepper spray could fly, and that's part of the thing I do is giving information to the crowd, safety information to avoid crowd panic, because that is a very dangerous thing if a crowd panics and starts fleeing. So, letting the people know they have to, be aware of their surroundings. They have to watch, their backs. They have to watch, make sure they know where their friends are. Remove your contact lenses if there's going to be tear gas and things that might melt into your eyes, and letting them know about the effects of pepper spray, what to do. Very simple information. Essentially, it's like camp counselor a little bit. But you're really trying to keep the people safe out on the streets and trying to really keep the cops chilled out and at bay. And my success is, I would say, and of course, making fun of the fucking cops too. I mean, that is a real important part of it, is, you know, making fun of the cops and breaking the tension, because things get really tense out there. And sometimes if I just start talking through the bullhorn, telling the cops I have them surrounded and to come out with their hands up and their pants down, you know, or just telling the crowd, if they feel intimidated, to imagine that all the cops are naked. You know, these funny lines that really get the cops laughing, get the fucking crowd laughing, and starts to change the thing from the thing. You know, in New York City in 2004, things were getting really tense between the cops and the protesters, and I was able to get the protesters to start chanting, "Give the cops a raise," because at the time they were trying to get a raise. You know, it's not what I believed, but I believed at the moment it was a way to fucking, you know, change it up, change things up. So yeah, I would highly recommend that any of you viewers watch the documentary "Who is Vermin Supreme?" It's on Vimeo. Don't see it it's on a few other platforms, but there's been a thing between the distributors and bankruptcy, and we're not sure if the filmmaker's getting anything from it. So go to Vimeo, check out "Who is Vermin Supreme?" Few bucks, but it's a serious document about my whole career up to that point in 2012, you know, from going viral to you know, my experiences in Riot World, and my experiences with you know, various political things over the years. And so without further ado, let me read you this little section from my book, iPony, Blueprint for a New America. Just let me take a little sip of water here dramatically. Little reference to Mark Rubio. And now I will do my Donald Trump. Thank you. All right. There were harsh political realities when President for Life, Vermin I, took office. At the time of his ascent to the White House, there were over 300 million Americans living in America's previous borders. At the time, there were only 200,000 ponies in the whole country. It was a recipe for civil unrest. These were not just political realities, friends. These were realities. There was a very stark choice to be made. On the table, would it be the mass execution of some 299,700,000 plus Americans in order to achieve proper pony-human parity? Or would it be something else? His misspoken claim during his inauguration to faithfully execute the American people was sounding visionary. It is certainly true that such a mass execution would create jobs. It would also lessen the country's dependence on foreign oil. It would be good for the environment. Now, although there were some drawbacks to consider, mostly they were merely questions of ethics and public relations. During this high time of widespread civil unrest, all options were on the table. The Dental High Command was put on high alert. The dental re-education camps were readied. Homeland Dental Security coordinated with the nation's dental police departments. The militarization of America's dental police forces had been a great idea that was about to pay off in lower incidences of gum disease nationwide. There were riots in the streets of numerous cities. Pulsating water pick cannons knocked rioters right off their feet and knocked the plaque right off of their teeth. The population was demanding their ponies, ponies that were nowhere in sight. It was a time of heightened international tensions. No one would have blamed Tyrant Supreme if he had ordered the National Dental Guard to carry out a full scale massacre of the civilian population. It was high time, actually. The veneer of civility that had protected Americans from such real political unrest for quite some time was wearing thin. The quaint and oft repeated notion that it can't happen here was truly just a lack of imagination.
That's awesome.
That's a little segment from my novella, I Pony Blueprint for a New Event. All the answers are in there, friends. If you have any questions regarding the Vermin Supreme candidacy and what it might mean to the Libertarian Party, it's all right here in my book.
There will be a link in the description of this video.
So there is that. So yes, my book is a look at the future, long after Vermin's Supreme Presidency, after everybody has their ponies, after zombie power fuels the nation, after the secret dental police set up checkpoints everywhere. Essentially, it's a warning from the people of the future to you, the people of their past, your present, that Vermin Supreme is a madman and must be stopped. It's all there.
So can we briefly, let's wrap this all into one little thing here.
Okay.
So let's briefly touch on the boot, and
Okay.
then let's run right into your outro, your closing statement.
Oh,
So,
goodness. I'm gonna have to find my closing statement. Cricket. Let's see. What will I be able to find it in time? That's the question.
that is the question. So
I think I can.
The other question that exists, and I've asked this question of the other hat-wearing candidate I've had on the show. I have to ask of you. And I'm sure there's some people that would love clarification. I won't name them by name, but I was going after them in a comment section today. What is the purpose of the boot?
Well, once again, the boot is a communication strategy. It's a magic boot. The magic of the boot has allowed me to communicate my message to millions of people across the globe, to get the attention and earn media from thousands of media outlets across the globe. So essentially, it is an elegant and simple, effective, an elegant and effective and simple device that I have used to amplify my First Amendment free speech to unimagined and exponential proportions. When I have a few throwaway lines, sure. When people say, "Oh, what's with the boot?" I tell them it stands for all that is good with America. Or if the media ask me about the boot, I tell them the boot is a pile of shit and that they are the flies that buzz around it. But I think ultimately the boot is a signifier. It signifies to the individuals or the people that are observing me that what the message they might be receiving doesn't have to be linear. So it sets that up. And I believe the most important thing is that if you take a photograph of me, a picture of me with the boot on my head in any place, any time, any crowd, any situation, and you show it to a kid and you say, "What's wrong with this picture?" They know immediately what's wrong with this picture. So it's part of my belief in Discordianism. It's of presenting things that don't seem to make sense. It's a little bit of a nod to the Dada school, the situationist school. We're trying to break through people's day to day, break through their understanding of reality. And, it's so effective that sometimes when I'm in riot world with this boot on my head, I can demand to see the commanding officer of a platoon of riot cops, and that commanding officer will come out and talk to me. So there is that. And, just the fact that I've been able to put together this presentation, ultimately, I believe it's been inspirational to a lot of people, a lot of kids, and a lot of kids, a lot of weird kids, a lot of kids that like their weirdness, and they're afraid they're going to grow up and have to be like some normal, boring adult, and that's part of it too. Showing the kids there's another way, showing there's there's an adult who cares. I mean, and another thing I talk about the boot is because this boot does stand for all that is good in America. The ability to wear a boot on your head if you so damn please, and not have the government or someone tell you that you can't. I mean, I don't believe there's anything more libertarian than me wearing a boot on my head to express myself as an individual. And
statement.
That's what I believe. It might not be in the platform planks just yet.
We'll have to kind of nudge someone to get in there.
Yeah.
So I'll let you roll right into your closing statement.
Okay. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. I'll go with this one because I was looking for the other one. All right. Yes, the transition to a full pony-based economy will not be an easy one. There will be some grumblers, pony haters in the beginning. There will be those that scream, "Big government!" These malcontents will be dealt with swiftly and harshly. Many pundits may argue that it will never work. They will be sent to the work camps to be shown otherwise. We will use social safety nets to catch and contain the poor people. The transition times will be confusing and frightening. But these people are impediments to the new utopia, examples of the dangers of old thinking, speed bumps in a world that has no use for speed bumps any longer. To create a new world omelet, you have to break some eggs. The road to Ponotopia will not be easy. The transition times will be confusing and frightening. Not all of us will make it. There will be sacrifices, human sacrifices. But let me assure you this, the road to Ponotopia will be paved with the glitter-encrusted skulls of our vanquished foes. In summation, free ponies for everyone, no new taxes, and economic prosperity for all. I'm Vermin Supreme. But on a more serious note, of course, as I have previously alluded to, I am making an offer to the Libertarian Party with my candidacy. I believe, and the people around me believe, that there's a very strong possibility, more so than with any other candidate in the field, to reach 5% in the general election. We believe, I mean, they really believe it. Me, I'm cautious, I'll go along with it. But they believe, they are believers, and you can be a believer too. And I believe my candidacy presents an incredible opportunity to the Libertarian Party to try something radically different. It is arguable that the politics of respectability is no longer valuable. It is arguable that somebody who is purely flouting that, purely up against it. I believe that my candidacy would make a serious statement, and I do believe that the LP can recover from it, and I do believe that the LP can benefit from it. And I believe that there are positives, there are negatives, but I believe it will be a net positive for the party. And I will do everything in my power to make it successful and to present the platform of the Libertarian Party to the American public every chance I get. I will do everything within my power to bring in the vast amount of kids and young people and the disgusted and the disillusioned and the people that are dreamers and believe that America can be a much better and very different place. And it's essentially my candidacy does, it's a big FU to the establishment. And it's I believe it can work. And I'm here for you, people. The offer's on the table. and we'll talk. And my campaign staff is just fucking amazing, and I wanted to give them a shout out and thank them so much for believing. Once again, I didn't decide to run for the presidency of the LP for lulz. This is my first real campaign. Every other campaign, Democrat or Republican, it was purely for lulz. It was purely imaginary. It wasn't real. But when I ran as a Democrat, I was not a Democrat. When I ran as a Republican, I was not a Republican. But I am running for the Libertarian Party nomination because I am a Libertarian. I am a member of the party, and I am willing to make this offer and do this for the party. It won't be easy. It's gonna be a lot of work. It'll be, granted, there'll be personal payoff. Sure. I'll get the thing out of it. But yeah, we can do it. Once again, the Libertarian Party, come this April 24th or whenever the convention is in Austin, will be tasked with a very serious choice. They will be giving a choice, a very clear choice, 2 time streams to choose from. There will be your choice. Time streams. The time stream where Vermin Supreme is the most talked about, over the top, kick-ass, outrageous, wild man candidate to ever run for the presidency on a major ticket across the country, that will grow the party, that will spread the message, that will bring in lots and lots of new blood that we can brainwash, if you will. But yeah, that's it, man. Or you could choose the other one. Whatever. Have another candidate. No, I don't mean to say we don't have many fine candidates, and I respect each and every one of their efforts. And of course, I will support whoever gets the Libertarian Party nomination. But really now, how much fun do you want to have? How much fun are we going to have? I mean, Jiminy the Cricket, it's going to be insane. And if we play it right, yeah, 5% is easily within our grasp. That's 1 out of 4 of that age demographic, or 1 out of 20 of people. Look around you. When you're in a group of 20 people or more, look around and say, which one of these people is voting for Vermin Supreme? And you'll be able to pick them out. That's all.
That's awesome. That was seriously awesome, and I have to thank you so much for coming on my podcast. It means the world to me.
Well, thank you very much, Henry. I appreciate the opportunity. When I'm appearing on a respected or a well-known libertarian podcast, the pressure's on, man. I mean, I gotta pretend like I know everything about everything, but obviously I don't know everything about everything, and it's not important to my candidacy. It's an aside. I'm willing to learn. Part of my offer is that I'm happy to have a person that people feel comfortable with there at my side, when it becomes a real thing. If the media was like, well, Vermin, what about this? I say, well, here, why don't you ask my cabinet member right here? Or, I'm totally willing to do it in a way that people feel comfortable about it. Once again, the boot's not negotiable. But on the other hand, once again, I mean, it's an in-house thing. I mean, I'm talking to you libertarians. I'm talking to you potential delegates. I mean, the boot's not attached to my head. It's simply not. I am not my character. I am not always on. I'm a very reasonable man with a reasonable offer that I'm putting on the table. So, I mean, a lot of you have met me, and, I've been to a dozen libertarian state conventions. I've been taking part in the debates, and, I'm in it. I'm a choice.
There it is. Proof that the boot does come off.
Yeah. My name is, as I sing in the song, my name is Vermin Supreme, and you can vote for me for president if you want to.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on the Voice of Liberty podcast. It was excellent having you on. Look forward to wrapping up the presidential series, at least the first part of it, later this week, and then we're going to move into the next portion of it, which I really hope that we'll have you involved in, where we're going to attempt to start grouping candidates together for debates. So look forward for that to happen. And as always, with the Voice of Liberty podcast, my name is Henry Conley. Awaken the Voice of Liberty.